The photographs looked like something out of a fairy tale. A Malaysian princess dressed in exquisite royal jewels, standing beside the British man she had chosen to marry. On August 7th, 2026, Princess Tengku Puteri Ilyana Alia, daughter of Malaysia's former king and the reigning Sultan of Pahang, married Christopher Lionel Froggatt, a British professional racing driver. The wedding brought together Malaysian royalty, distinguished guests, and a family whose story stretches far beyond the racetrack. But there was something unusual about this marriage. To the outside world, Chris Froggatt was simply a British racing driver who had married a Malaysian princess. But look a little closer, and another picture begins to emerge. His family has decades of involvement in British property and investment businesses. His own business interests extend beyond motorsport, with British corporate records also connecting him to business activity involving Dubai. And then there is the question of how a British racing driver and a Malaysian princess came into each other's lives in the first place. Because this was not simply the story of a princess meeting a stranger. There have been suggestions that their families knew each other long before the wedding. And while the groom attracted attention, another member of the bride's family has remained almost completely outside the public spotlight. Her mother, Julia Rice, the former Malaysian actress who married into the Pahang royal family and then largely withdrew from public life. Was she at her daughter's wedding? Why has she remained so private for so many years? And who exactly is the man Princess Ilyana has now chosen to marry? Behind the beautiful photographs is a story of royalty, racing, family businesses, private lives, and a British man whose world may be far more complicated than the words racing driver suggest. So before we look at the wedding itself, let's find out who Princess Ilyana's new husband really is. Christopher Lionel Froggatt was born in 1993 and is British. Unlike many professional racing drivers, he did not spend his childhood climbing through the traditional karting ladder. His own racing biography describes his arrival in car racing as unusually late. He was already 24 when a Ferrari high-performance driving experience at the Fiorano circuit in Italy changed the direction of his life. What began as an interest in fast cars became a serious racing career. In 2017, Froggatt entered Ferrari Challenge Europe and finished third in the championship. The following year, he returned and dominated the series, winning 10 of 14 races and taking the title. Then came the move into GT3 racing. Froggatt founded Tempesta Racing, building the team with experienced racing figures and eventually competing at some of Europe's most demanding circuits. The results followed. Tempesta Racing won major Pro-Am titles, competed in the GT World Challenge Europe, and in 2025 reached one of the biggest stages in endurance racing, the 24 Hours of Le Mans. By 2026, Froggatt was still racing at the highest level, with Tempesta Racing competing in a Porsche 911 GT3R. So when people describe him as a racing driver, that part is absolutely true. But it is not the whole story. British corporate records reveal that Froggatt is also connected to a family with a long history in property and investment. Froggatt Investments Limited dates back to 1961. The company's records connect Christopher with other members of the Froggatt family, including his father, Lionel Maurice Froggatt, and his brother Daniel. Christopher is also a director of Manaway Developments, another British property development company. This does show something important. The man who arrived at a Malaysian royal wedding was not simply a young driver whose entire identity began at the racetrack. He comes from a family with a long-established business background, while he himself has built a serious career in motorsport and has interests outside racing. And then there is Dubai. British corporate records show Froggatt connected to 93 Energy Investments, one limited. With Future Energy Investments, FZCO, in Dubai, appearing within the company's control structure. That does not, by itself, prove some secret royal connection, but it does make the international background of the groom more interesting than the simple description "British racing driver" suggests. And perhaps the most fascinating part of the story is that he was not marrying just any Malaysian woman. He was marrying a princess from one of Malaysia's reigning royal houses. Princess Tengku Puteri Ilyana Alia was born in Kuala Lumpur in 1997. She is the youngest of 3 daughters born to Sultan Abdullah and Julia Rice. Her eldest sister, Tengku Puteri Iman Afzan, was born in 1992 and married Tengku Abu Bakar Ahmad in 2018. Her other sister, Tengku Puteri Elisha Amira, was born in 1993. But Ilyana's father has a much larger place in Malaysia's modern royal history. Sultan Abdullah Riayatuddin Al-Mustafa Billah Shah became Sultan of Pahang in January 2019. That same year, he became Malaysia's 16th Yang di-Pertuan Agong, the country's federal king. His 5-year term ended in January 2024 when Sultan Ibrahim of Johor became the next king. But Sultan Abdullah did not stop being a monarch. He remains the Sultan of Pahang. That means Ilyana is not simply the daughter of a former national king. She is the daughter of a reigning sultan. And that distinction matters when you look at the scale of the wedding. On August 7th, the marriage was solemnized in Kuala Lumpur. Sultan Abdullah attended the ceremony himself, accompanied by the Crown Prince of Pahang, Tengku Hassanal Ibrahim Alam Shah. The Akad Nikah was conducted by the Mufti of Pahang, Professor Datuk Dr. Asmadi Muhammad Naim. After the marriage contract was completed, Chris Frogat performed a sunnah prayer before the ceremony continued with the presentation of the Mas Kawin, the exchange of rings, prayers, and traditional blessings. The images that followed showed the couple surrounded by members of the royal family and honored guests. And this is where the wedding becomes more than a glamorous royal event. Because Ilyana's family has a fascinating story of its own. Her mother, Julia Rice, was not born into royalty. Before she entered the palace, she was a Malaysian actress and model. During the early 1990s, Julia appeared in several Malaysian films and became a recognizable face in the country's entertainment industry. Then, in 1991, she married Abdullah, who at the time was Crown Prince of Pahang. After that marriage, Julia largely stepped away from the entertainment world. She became the mother of 3 daughters, Iman, Elisha, and Ilyana. But unlike many members of royal families, she has maintained an intensely private life. That privacy has made her absence from public royal events especially noticeable. And after Ilyana's wedding, the question naturally returned: where was Julia Rice? There have been online claims and speculation about whether she attended the wedding privately. But the important thing is this: the available public reporting does not establish that she was deliberately kept away from the ceremony, nor does it prove that she was absent. So for now, the mystery remains a mystery. And perhaps that is what makes Julia's story so compelling. A woman who once appeared on Malaysian cinema screens became part of one of the country's most important royal families, raised 3 daughters, and then almost completely disappeared from public life. Now, one of those daughters has married a British man whose life is equally unusual. Chris Froggatt is not a prince. He was not born into a royal house. He is a British commoner in the traditional sense. But he is also an accomplished racing driver, a team founder, a company director, and a member of a family with decades of business history. And his marriage to Ilyana brings 2 very different worlds together. One is the world of Malaysian royalty, where titles, traditions, and centuries of family history still matter. The other is the modern world of international motorsport, British business, and global travel. And that contrast may be the most interesting thing about this wedding, because royal marriages are rarely just about two people. They are also about families, traditions, expectations, and the worlds those two people bring with them. For Princess Ilyana, the wedding marked the beginning of a new chapter. For Chris Froggatt, it meant entering a royal family with traditions very different from the world of international racing. And for the public, it left one simple question. Was he really just a racing driver who happened to marry a princess by luck or love? Or was there much more to the man standing beside her? Princess Ilyana and Chris Froggatt have begun that story together, and only time will tell what comes next.